Sarah was an adventurous young woman who had always been drawn to the mysteries of the night. Her curiosity often led her into the depths of the woods surrounding her quaint hometown. Sarah had decided to explore the forest alone. Armed with a small flashlight and a fearless spirit, she ventured deeper into the woods, her every step accompanied by the rustle of leaves and the hoot of an owl. As Sarah wandered deeper into the forest, her flashlight's feeble beam barely cut through the thick canopy above. A subtle unease tugged at her, but she pressed on. The night was silent, too silent for comfort, and the absence of nocturnal sounds sent a chill down her spine. Suddenly, a haunting howl pierced the silence. Sarah's heart raced as her flashlight trembled in her hand. The howl echoed again, this time much closer. Panic set in as she realized that this was no ordinary animal. It was the infamous Dogman. Sarah's mind raced, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew that she had to make a choice, retreat or face the unknown. But curiosity and courage fueled her. She cautiously moved forward, her flashlight trembling as she shone it into the darkness. Emerging from the shadows, the Dogman came into view. A monstrous figure with matted fur and those eerie, piercing yellow eyes. It stood there, its growls vibrating through the night. Fear gripped Sarah, but she held her ground. In an unexpected moment, she extended a trembling hand toward the creature, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's okay," she said softly. "I won't hurt you." To her astonishment, the Dogman's demeanor changed. Its growls softened, and it took a tentative step closer. Its eyes no longer filled with menace, but with a hint of curiosity and vulnerability. Sarah slowly retreated, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and wonder. The Dogman watched her for a moment longer before disappearing into the night, leaving Sarah with an unforgettable encounter that would forever change her perspective on the mysterious and the unknown. She returned home with a story that no one would believe, but it didn't matter. Sarah had faced the legendary Dogman and lived to tell the tale.
I always thought solo hiking the Appalachian Trail would clear my head. Just me, the trees, and about 2 weeks to sort out my life. But now I think I was just walking towards something that wanted me alone. I was about 4 days in, past most of the other hikers. I liked it that way. Quiet, clean air. The kind of silence that only old forests can give you, where every sound has weight. That morning, I found footsteps near my camp. Bare feet, big, clawed. Not animal, not human either. I told myself it had to be a prank. The next night, I heard breathing outside my tent. Low, wet, like it had a lung full of swamp water. I didn't move, didn't make a sound. Just gripped the knife in my sleeping bag and waited. Eventually it left, but not before brushing the tent wall with something coarse. I packed up before sunrise and took a less marked trail, hoping to lose whatever it was. But that's when things got worse. I started seeing those symbols carved into trees, circles with jagged lines, a kind of stick figure, upside down, and always fresh. Then came the smell, rotting meat, old fur, like something dead had been dragged across the trail. I hiked hard all day, no breaks, but no matter how far I went, the smell would return. sometimes just ahead, sometimes right behind me. At dusk, I made it to a rocky outcrop. Good vantage point. I figured if it followed me, I'd see it coming. I sat there, staring down the hill, until I saw it. Between the trees, a figure, on 2 legs. Tall, shaggy, watching. It didn't move, not until I turned on my headlamp. Then it was gone. No sound, just vanished. But later, after I'd finally crawled into my tent and zipped up, I heard a voice. It was mine, my own voice, calling out from the woods. Same tone, same words I'd spoken earlier that day. Left the main trail, taking the ridge east. Then silence. Then claws, scraping gently across the nylon wall of my tent, back and forth. Just enough to let me know it was still there. I didn't sleep. I didn't even breathe right. I just waited for morning, and when the sky barely started turning gray, I ran. I left my tent, my pack, everything. Didn't stop until I hit a ranger station nearly 12 miles out. The ranger didn't say much, just looked at me and said, "You're not the first one to come out of those woods without gear." Then he asked if I saw the shadow man with the dog face. I didn't answer. I didn't want to know if he was joking. I've never gone back, but sometimes I hear things in my backyard now. Something pacing in the trees beyond the fence. And every now and then, when it's real quiet, I hear my own voice calling from the dark.
James had always been a peculiar man, with a petulant for wandering the woods at night. Nobody understood why he was so drawn to the dark, mysterious depths of the forest, but he couldn't help himself. The allure of solitude and the enigmatic beauty of the night compelled him to venture into the wilderness when the moon was at its zenith. One chilly autumn evening, the moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie silver glow over the towering trees. He ventured into the heart of the forest. Crunching leaves beneath his boots echoed through the otherwise silent woods. As he walked deeper into the woods, James couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. It was as if the trees themselves whispered secrets to him, urged him to turn back. But he couldn't resist the pull of the forest. Minutes turned into hours, and the world around him became a dreamscape of shadows and moonlight. James felt a strange sense of tranquility, despite the eerie atmosphere. He had always found solace in these nightly excursions, but tonight was different. Without warning, the forest fell into an oppressive silence. He stopped in his tracks, heart pounding. His instincts screamed at him to leave, but curiosity got the better of him. Then, in the distance, a faint howl pierced the stillness. James froze. It couldn't be a mere animal. It was too guttural, too menacing. The howl echoed again, closer this time, and dread washed over him. His flashlight beam darted in the direction of the sound, revealing a pair of gleaming yellow eyes. The dogman emerged from the shadows, its grotesque form towering over James. Fear gripped him like a vice, but he couldn't move. The creature, half man, half beast, loomed closer, its eyes filled with an unnatural hunger. With an animalistic snarl, the dogman lunged at James. Instinctively, he swung his flashlight, striking the creature's head. The dogman howled in agony and retreated into the darkness. James didn't waste a moment. He turned and ran, stumbling through the underbrush, branches clawing at his jacket. He could hear the creature's heavy footsteps pursuing him, its sinister growls echoing through the night. As James burst out of the woods and into the open, moonlit field, he glanced back one last time. The dogman had vanished into the shadows of the night, but its yellow eyes remained etched into his memory. From that night on, James never wandered into the woods at night again. He'd finally realized the true danger that lurked in the darkness, a danger that had haunted his nighttime escapades for reasons he could never fathom. The mysterious allure of the woods at night had been shattered.
It all happened when I was 12 years old. I'm now a grown man, but I will never forget that night. I still have nightmares about that night, and I never go out at night near the woods. Even during the day, I would have trouble walking through them. It was a normal afternoon during summer. I had finished playing outside with some friends and went inside for dinner, but before I went, I took a quick shower. When I was in my bedroom preparing myself, I heard some growling noises coming from outside. At first, I thought it was a dog, but it felt too close. I walked closer to the window. I wanted to see what animal was doing these growling noises. I couldn't see anything, but the growling was still there. I looked everywhere, but nothing. Later in the evening, after having dinner, I went to my room to play some more before sleeping. Since it was summer break, I could stay up longer. While playing, I started listening to stomp noises on the roof. My room is on the second floor, so I was directly under. I stayed there for a while, just listening to the stomping. It sounded like someone was walking on the roof. A few more seconds passed and the stomping stopped, but that was when a chilling sound came from behind me. Outside the window, a sound of scratching on the glass could be heard. I looked back and I saw it. A figure of something that looked like a dog and a man at the same time was outside my window, drooling and growling at the same time. I screamed. My parents came to my room, but the creature was already gone. I told my parents what happened, but they didn't seem to believe me. No one ever did. I love running in the night. No one is in the streets. I can run and appreciate the silence around me. Sometimes I run through town, other times I run in the woods. Close to my place, there are a few trails that go through the woods. It might be creepy for some, but I always enjoyed it very much. So this night, as I'm running on these trails, I started listening to running footsteps behind me. Because I wasn't listening to music while running, I stopped to check behind me to see if someone was there. I looked around, but I saw nothing. Dead silence. I continued running. After a few seconds, same thing happened. Footsteps again. I stopped and asked out loud if someone was there. In my head, I thought it could be an animal or something like that. I waited a few more seconds until I listened to another noise. A growling, like a dog or wolf. It was the first time I'd felt afraid on my night runs. The growling was getting closer. A few seconds later, in front of me, coming from behind me, in some bushes. A creature, no, a man or a dog, started running towards me. Frozen in terror, I looked at it for just a second, right before I started running as fast as I could. I think I've never ran so fast as that day. Luckily, I managed to get to the main road before it got me, but I didn't stop there. I kept running until I was home. When I arrived home, I couldn't believe in what I just saw. I tried to sleep as best as I could, and the next day, I did some research on local wildlife, but I couldn't find anything, not until I'd looked for cryptid encounters. It looks like where I live, there are others that have seen the same creature I saw that day, the Dogman. I never again ran at night. I was riding my e-bike through a road a few miles from my house. The road was surrounded by forest on both sides. Everything seemed fine until I heard a sound coming from the tree line. Even though I had no idea what it was, my worst fear had always been possibly getting attacked by a wild animal. So I sped up the e-bike to make sure I wasn't in any danger. But I was horrified to see that whatever made the sound was actually running behind the tree line alongside the road. What I thought was an animal at first would actually alternate from running on all fours to running on two legs. I started to freak out because it looked like a bear or a wolf was running like a human as well. I'm thinking it's just some weirdo in a costume, but what really concerned me was even though I was going almost 20 miles an hour on the e-bike, whatever this thing was keeping up with me. I was just hoping I could make it to the gas station a few miles away to get some help. However, I was worried I'd run out of juice on the e-bike before I got there. By now, I was going full speed and this damn thing was still chasing me. The whole time I could hear something sprinting and grunting through the forest. Also, I could see it in my peripheral vision. And just a few seconds after that, that's when I finally hear it emerge from the tree line and chase me from behind on the road. It was too dark to probably see anything. I just leaned down on my e-bike and basically prayed. Thankfully, the lights of the gas station soon emerged from the distance. It wasn't until I rode into the parking lot that I finally looked behind me. But when I did, I saw nothing. None of the other customers looked like they saw anything either. I called my mom soon after to pick me up. I haven't ridden my e-bike around the area since then. I have made attempts with friends to look for whatever it was though, but we haven't had any luck finding it.
I am an outdoorsman. Always have been. Also, there isn't much to do where I live, besides going into the wild. Don't get me wrong, I love it. But it would be nice to have some other options. Anyway, as I was saying, last week, I was having beers with my best friend in our backyard, having fun and telling jokes to each other. Then, on a more serious note, he asked me if I knew about the Dogman. I told him yes. I have heard about it, but it was a local legend. He then tells me it was not a legend and that he could prove it to me. We had a few beers. I was sure he was just trolling me, but I decided to say yes. Why not? He told me he would meet me tonight with hiking gear ready. I asked him why we had to go at night. He answered, "There's no other way to see the Dogman. Also, get your rifle ready. We might need it." I said yes. I also didn't want to sound afraid. We were probably not going to find anything. Night came. We started the hike directly from my backyard, as it leads directly into the woods and connects into the massive forest area. While walking, my friend tells me a story about this Dogman, and the first time he saw him. He was night fishing in a lake not far from here, alone, until he spots it in the distance. On the shore, a shadow. In the beginning, he thought it was some guy, just staring. But it couldn't be. It was too big, and the shape didn't look like a man. So he quickly aimed his flashlight at it, and it ran away. But my friend got a glimpse of it. It wasn't a man. It had fur from head to toe, but it ran on two legs. Now, I know my friend for years. He never told me this story. I asked him why he never told me this, and why tell me now. He said he didn't know how to tell me this, and he didn't want me to think of him as crazy. But also, he couldn't hold this much longer. He needed to tell someone. I told him it was a story hard to believe, but I think he was right. He did see something on that shore, but it could have been a bear or something else. The night can play tricks on you. Anyway, we arrived at the lake area where he saw this creature. We put the gear down and waited behind some bushes. We tried to move very little. Every noise could scare animals off and reveal our position. But after 1 hour of nothing, my friend tells me it is time to change our position. But this time, each one of us in a different place. I didn't think it was a good idea to separate, but I agreed. He was the more experienced hunter from both of us. I slowly moved to a different place. When I reached my new position, I could see my friend also relocate. He was now on the far side, opposite to me. I was the one closest to the lake, and he didn't have to wait long. When I started to hear something from behind me, footsteps approaching. Slowly and closer, I kept hearing them, passing right in front of my bush. I knew it wasn't my friend. He was too far away. But all of a sudden, the footsteps stopped, right in front of me. Those were a few seconds of horror. I didn't know if I should have peeked and see what it was, or just stayed in hiding. The choice was done for me, as I felt an arm grab me and throw me in the air. When I landed on my back, I was sure something was broken, because I couldn't move, except my head and right arm. I tried to get up, to look forward and to see what it was, and here it was. A creature standing on 2 legs, looking at me with terrifying eyes. I was for sure gone now. Couldn't move. I was easy prey. The creature got close. This was it. The end. But from nowhere, I heard shooting. My friend, of course, was shooting at the creature. I raised my head to see it, and it was gone. My friend quickly came and helped me. He stood guard till morning and went for help. After a few hours, we were rescued by park rangers, and they took us to the hospital, where I was treated for a broken leg and a twisted ankle. That was the last time I was in the woods, and I don't think I could come back again. Also, I'm afraid of the creature caught on my scent. It will be back to finish the job.
Halloween was always my favorite night of the year. There was something magical about dressing up, wandering the neighborhood, and coming home with a bag full of candy. This year I had decided to go as a vampire, complete with fake fangs and a long black cape. The night was chilly, but the excitement of Halloween kept me warm as I roamed the streets with my friends. We laughed, ran from house to house, and traded candy as we went. But when I finally got home, something felt off. My parents were out at a Halloween party, so I had the house to myself. After tossing my candy bag on the kitchen table, I grabbed a soda and settled on the couch to watch a horror movie. I was all set for a relaxing night, just me and some classic scares on the screen. But then I heard something strange. At first, it was just a faint rustling, almost too quiet to notice. I paused the movie, thinking it might have been the wind. But then I heard it again, this time a bit louder. It was coming from the backyard. My heart skipped a beat as I stood up, trying to listen more closely. The wind? An animal? I wasn't sure, but curiosity got the better of me. I walked over to the back door and peered out into the darkness. The backyard looked normal enough, bathed in the dim light of the moon. The trees swayed gently, and the shadows shifted across the lawn. But there was nothing unusual, nothing that should have made that noise. I was about to turn away when I heard it again, a low, deep growl that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I froze, my eyes strained against the darkness, trying to make out where the sound was coming from. Then I saw it, something moving near the fence. At first I thought it was a dog, but as it stepped into the moonlight, I realized it was something much worse. The creature was large, hunched over, and covered in dark, matted fur. It had a twisted, almost human face, but with features that were all wrong. Elongated limbs, clawed hands, and eyes that glowed with a sickly yellow light. Panic surged through me. This wasn't real. It couldn't be. I had heard stories about skinwalkers, creatures from Navajo legend that could shapeshift and take on the form of animals, but I had never believed them. Now, standing there, face to face with this thing, I knew those stories were true. The skinwalker took a step closer, its growl rumbling deep in its chest. I could see its sharp teeth glinting in the moonlight, and its eyes locked onto mine. Somehow, I broke free from my paralysis and stumbled backward toward the house. The creature lunged at me just as I reached the door. I yanked it open, slipped inside, and slammed it shut, locking it behind me. The creature's claws scraped against the wood, sending chills down my spine. I backed away from the door, breathing hard, my mind racing. What had I just seen? The scratching stopped, and I listened, waiting. After what felt like hours, I heard footsteps retreating, fading into the night. Slowly, I inched back to the window and peeked outside. The yard was empty again, the shadows still. I collapsed onto the floor, my heart still pounding. I couldn't believe what had just happened. I had come face to face with a skinwalker and somehow survived. But the terror of those glowing eyes and that twisted face would stay with me forever. Halloween would never be the same again. I've been camping alone for years, and I've always loved it. There's something about the solitude, the quiet of the woods, and the crackling of a campfire that puts me at ease. I had my routine down to a science: pack up my gear, drive out to my favorite spot deep in the woods, and spend a weekend unwinding from the chaos of daily life. I'd never had any trouble out there before, that is, until this last trip. I arrived at my usual spot just before dusk. The sun was setting, casting long shadows through the trees, but I was used to it. I set up my tent, gathered firewood, and got a small fire going. As the flames flickered and popped, I settled into my chair with a book, enjoying the peace and quiet. The forest was alive with the usual sounds: crickets chirping, leaves rustling in the breeze, an owl hooting somewhere in the distance. It was perfect. But as the night went on, I noticed something strange. The usual sounds of the forest started to fade, replaced by an eerie silence, the kind that makes your skin crawl. I tried to shrug it off, convincing myself it was just my imagination, but the feeling of unease wouldn't go away. Then I heard it, a low growl, deep and guttural, coming from the darkness just beyond the reach of the firelight. I froze, every muscle in my body tensing up. My first thought was a bear, but this growl was different. It didn't sound like any animal I'd ever heard. It sounded wrong, like something that shouldn't exist. I grabbed my flashlight and shone it into the woods, my heart pounding in my chest. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating the trees, but there was nothing there. I kept scanning the area, hoping to catch a glimpse of whatever had made that sound, but all I saw were shadows. I was about to sit back down when I heard the growl again, this time closer. My blood ran cold. I swung the flashlight around, and that's when I saw it. A pair of eyes, reflecting the light, staring at me from the darkness. They were too high off the ground to belong to a normal animal, and the way they glowed sent a jolt of fear through me. I didn't wait to find out what it was. I grabbed my stuff and doused the fire as quickly as I could, trying not to panic. But as I started to pack up, I heard something moving through the trees, getting closer. The growling grew louder, more menacing. My heart was racing now. I knew I had to get out of there, fast. I threw my gear into my pack and started running toward my truck, my flashlight beam bouncing wildly in the dark. The thing in the woods started to follow, its footsteps heavy and fast. I could hear it crashing through the underbrush, snarling as it closed the distance between us. I ran faster than I ever had in my life, adrenaline pumping through my veins. I reached the truck, fumbling with the keys, and finally got the door open. I jumped inside, slammed the door shut, and locked it just as the creature reached the edge of the clearing. It stopped, its glowing eyes fixed on me, but it didn't come any closer. I could see its silhouette now, tall, hunched over, with long, muscular limbs. It wasn't human, but it wasn't fully animal either. It looked like something out of a nightmare. I started the truck, the engine roaring to life, and floored it. As I sped away, I looked in the rearview mirror and saw the creature watching me, its eyes glowing in the darkness until they were out of sight. I didn't stop driving until I was miles away from those woods. My hands were shaking, my mind racing, trying to make sense of what I had just experienced. I've never been back to that spot, and I'm not sure I ever will. Whatever that thing was, it was no ordinary animal. It felt like something ancient, something evil, and I'll never forget the terror of being chased by it, knowing that if I had been just a little slower, I might not have made it out alive.
It was a moonless night in late October when a young couple, Emily and Mark, decided to go camping in the heart of Willowbrook Forest. The crackling campfire was their only source of light as they sat beside their cozy tent, roasting marshmallows and sharing stories under the starry sky. As the night grew darker, the surrounding forest seemed to come alive with strange sounds. Leaves rustled, owls hooted, and the chilling wind whispered through the trees. Emily wrapped her arms around herself, feeling a sudden unease. Mark noticed her discomfort and attempted to soothe her nerves. "Don't worry, Em," he pulled her closer. "It's just the forest playing tricks on us. There's nothing to be afraid of." Emily tried to smile, but something deep within her told her otherwise. Just then, a distant howl echoed through the woods, sending shivers down their spines. Mark brushed it off as a coyote, but Emily couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. An hour passed, and the forest's eerie ambiance intensified. The couple decided to retreat into their tent, zipping it tightly to ward off the creeping dread. As they nestled into their sleeping bags, they heard it again, the howling, but this time it was closer. Mark peered outside, his flashlight cutting through the darkness, but there was nothing to see. Emily clung to him, her heart racing. She wanted to leave, to abandon their camping trip, but Mark insisted it was just their imagination running wild. Minutes turned to hours as they lay in their tent, listening to the sinister howling, drawing nearer. The air grew heavy with tension, and the forest shadows danced ominously around them. Just when Emily thought she couldn't bear it any longer, Mark's face turned white as a ghost. "Em?" he whispered, his voice trembling. "There's something out there." A guttural growl resonated from the darkness, chilling their bones. Emily and Mark clung to each other, paralyzed with fear. The howling now surrounded them, a sinister symphony of dread. Then from the inky blackness emerged a monstrous figure, half man, half beast, covered in matted fur, with piercing yellow eyes that gleamed like malevolent stars. The Dogman had found them. Mark fumbled for the flashlight. Its feeble beam revealed the creature's grotesque form. Emily gasped as the Dogman lurched closer, its ragged breath hot and foul. It was a creature born of nightmares, with gnarled claws and teeth as sharp as daggers. With a sudden burst of adrenaline, Mark grabbed a heavy branch from outside the tent and swung it wildly at the creature. The Dogman let out a blood-curdling howl of pain and retreated into the darkness, leaving the couple trembling and terrified. They knew they had to leave, but the forest had become a labyrinth of dread. Every rustling leaf, every snapping twig seemed to echo with menace. It took hours, but they finally found their way back to their car, their hearts pounding in their chests. They sped out of Willowbrook Forest, leaving behind the haunting legend of the Dogman. The couple never spoke of the night again, but the memory of those yellow eyes and the bone-chilling howls would haunt their dreams for the rest of their lives, a reminder that in the depths of darkness, unspeakable horrors could lurk, waiting to turn a peaceful night into a nightmare beyond imagination.
This story happened several years ago. I work for a security firm, and we're contracted by a company who owns a couple buildings that have been abandoned for years. So, as a security guard, it's our task sometimes to do frequent checks on some of these properties. Some are almost in the middle of nowhere. On this one night, it was my job to check on an unmanned building that was located near a forest. As soon as I arrived at the location, I parked my car and began checking the perimeter of the building. But just as I was in the middle of doing so, something near a group of trees caught my attention. There was a noise, and as soon as I flashed my light in the direction of it, that's when I ended up illuminating something that I was convinced was a furry animal. For a split second, the thought entered my head that I was going to make some noise and scare it away. But the more my eyes and brain adjusted to what I was seeing, that's when I felt a cold chill just overwhelm me. Whatever I was looking at, it was standing on two legs. And while I've actually come across bears before that could do that, I knew that this wasn't one. It wasn't balancing itself. It was standing on two legs like that was its normal stance, and its arms were hanging relaxed by its torso. I couldn't see the whole thing clearly because some bushes and branches obstructed the view, but I could tell it was big. It had hair all over its body, and its face was definitely canine. But worst of all, it was definitely looking at me as well. Shh. It didn't take me more than a few seconds to make the decision to get the hell out of there. Since the only thing we were allowed to carry was mace, there was no way of me defending myself if whatever this thing was decided to attack me. So I ran to my car and drove away as fast as I could. I didn't report anything unusual that night because I wasn't interested in being written up for not properly doing my rounds. But I wasn't interested in going back there again, so I put in a transfer to a different location. When that didn't work, I quit a few days later instead of going back there. That's how much the incident shook me. But my coworkers, who are still working at the same company, have never reported anything similar to this day. A lot of people don't know this, but you can actually rent one of those retired ranger towers. Since I love doing adventurous stuff, I decided for my vacation that I was going to spend a weekend renting one out. When I arrived at the ranger tower, I was greeted by the caretaker who gave me the keys. He also gave me a short tour of the place regarding how to use some of the amenities. After thanking him, he left a few minutes later, finally leaving me alone with the place. And man, was I glad I decided to rent the place out. The area was beautiful. I was surrounded by nothing but trees, mountains in the distance. It was really peaceful. The first night and day after went without a hitch. I'd relax and enjoy the views from atop the tower. Just as the weekend was coming to a close, that's when something happened. As I was getting ready to turn in for the night, I heard a howl from a distance. I figured it was about time that I heard a wolf or something. I hadn't seen so much as a deer the whole time since I had gotten there. But just as I was about to doze off, I heard the howl again, and this time it was even closer. Even if a wolf was getting closer, I figured there was no way it was getting up here anyway. I wasn't even going to bother taking a look outside until I started to hear something running along the trees outside. Now, I have no idea how big wolves get, but the footsteps I was hearing sounded really heavy. That's when I actually became concerned. If it wasn't an animal, then it could be a person, I thought to myself. And with my car parked at the bottom of the tower, I was concerned about my property being messed with. So I got out of bed and took a look outside. But after a few attempts with my flashlight, I wasn't able to spot anything. I did work up the courage to yell, "Hey, you're on private property. If you don't leave now, the cops will be on their way. I also have a firearm." That was a lie. I don't own a firearm since I'm not a hunter. But also, the only thing this place is equipped with is bear mace. I was just hoping my bluff would scare away any possible intruder. But even after my threats, there was still no sign of anything. I thought maybe either he had left or it was an animal after all. But just as I was thinking of going back inside, that's when I spotted a large dark silhouette running from behind a row of trees. But every time I would try to catch it with my light, it would disappear behind another group of trees. The same thing would happen again a few minutes later, and that went on for what felt like an hour, even though I'm sure it was only several minutes. This is when I became seriously worried. Whatever it was either messing with me or testing my defenses. And as much as I wanted to call for help, I was too embarrassed at possibly having authorities come out here, only for them to realize I was scared by a run-of-the-mill forest animal. After a few minutes of silence, I started getting a sense of relief that maybe the thing had finally left. However, just as I started to relax, That's when I would see the most shocking thing I've ever seen in my life. Right by the outhouse that was located near the bottom of the tower, I saw something peeking from behind it. I didn't even need my flashlight to get a sense of what it was. It was definitely something that looked like a wolf because of its snout, but its body was large like a bear. It was also tall. The outhouse, if I had to guess, was over 6 feet tall. But whatever this thing was, it was crouching over it in an attempt to hide behind it. As soon as I saw it, for some stupid reason, I threw the bottle of bear mace that I was holding right at it. I had no idea if I hit it or not because I was too busy running back inside. And even then, I still didn't call for help. For the rest of the night, I didn't do anything but hide inside the top of the tower. I cowered in a corner while gripping a flare gun for protection. The whole time, all I could do was listen closely, hoping whatever that thing was wouldn't start walking up the steps located on the lower levels of the tower. After a terrifying couple of hours waiting, the sun finally came up. I worked up the courage to finally take a look outside again, and when it looked like the coast was clear, I got the hell on out of there. I told the caretaker about what had happened, but upon checking, he said he didn't find anything unusual. I did end up paying a small fee, though, for the damaged bottle of bear mace that I threw. Maybe it did hit its target after all. I told him I'd finish up the last pine before calling it. Stupid pride, I guess. Everyone else had already packed up, trucks rolling out, jokes echoing as they left me in the clearing alone. I wasn't worried. Hell, I liked the quiet. I had just dropped the last batch of branches near the loader and was walking back toward the chainsaw when I heard it snap. Not the kind of crack you hear from a falling limb or a squirrel. This was deliberate, 2 feet, heavy, like something big trying not to be heard. I froze, listened hard. Nothing, just the wind again, maybe a bird somewhere. I shook it off and kept walking, but then I heard it, a whistle, low, familiar, the same damn rhythm my boss always used to signal break time. Only he was long gone. Do I call out or keep quiet? I stayed quiet. That's when I noticed the claw marks, fresh, deep, 5 of them, carved clean through bark, 7 feet high, maybe more. Then my backpack, it was lying by my boots, half unzipped. I'd left it over by the truck, 20 yards away. Sun was almost down now, and that's when the fog came, thick, low, clinging to the ground like smoke, and I wasn't alone anymore. I heard breathing, not mine, wet, heavy, something trying to keep still. It was behind the loader. Do I run to the truck or hide? I backed toward the loader, quiet, careful. Whatever it was, it moved, fast, circling me, not walking, gliding. Then the whistle, again, closer now, and something else, like laughter, choked, broken, trying to sound human. I pulled out my flashlight, dim, useless, but just enough to catch a shape between the trees, tall, hunched, watching me. When I shined the light at it, it stepped back, but I saw the eyes, amber, reflective, like a dog's, but they blinked like a man's. My legs moved before my brain did. I ran, didn't look back. The truck was up ahead, keys already in my hand. I hit the door, yanked it open, locked it behind me. Silence. Then movement behind the truck. I leaned forward, trying to see through the side mirror. That whistle right outside my window. I didn't wait. I floored it, spun dirt and gravel until I was flying down that logging road like the devil himself was chasing me. They say Dogman doesn't always kill. Sometimes it just wants you to know it was there, that it let you go, and that it can come back whenever it wants.
I'm going to tell you something I never imagined possible. Being a skeptical person that never believed in the supernatural, or whatever creatures that supposedly exist out there. This story happened during my late 20s, and I remember it like it was yesterday. It was a Friday night during a session of browsing and chatting on the internet with my online friends. Because I lived in the suburbs, it's common for me to spend more time at home. Also, because nothing exciting happens in my neighborhood, or so I thought till that day. Like I was saying, it was a Friday night and I was on my laptop when I started listening to noises coming from trash cans directly under my window, between the fence and the side of my house. I usually don't pay attention to this because there is a forest area behind my house, so it's common for raccoons to come close to the houses and mess up garbage cans. But the noise was already annoying me and was getting louder, so I went downstairs to scare the raccoons away. When I reached the kitchen, I peeked through the window to the trash cans, and as I thought, there was trash on the ground and one of the cans was laying sideways. I got angry now because I had to go outside and pick up the trash before any more raccoons would come and make an even bigger mess. I got closer to the back door and opened it. As soon as I put my eyes in the backyard, my body froze. The first thing I saw, behind the bushes, was a tall figure that was too big to be a man. Also, the silhouette didn't look like one. Shocked, I kept looking at the figure, and with time my vision started adapting to the darkness, and I could start to really see what was in front of me. It had a muscled body and the head that looked like a dog. In a matter of seconds, the creature's eyes locked on me and it began to growl. This is when I managed to close the door and moved away, but I kept my eyes on the door. A few seconds passed and I could hear the steps of the creature walking in the door's direction. When it reached the door, the growling stopped, but another chilling sound started. The sound of claws scratching on the door. I will never forget that sound. I slowly walked to the corner of my living room, not knowing what to do, but just trying to stay hidden. That's when I listened to the creature moving around the house, going towards the side, near the kitchen window. I was terrified, but I needed to see that thing again. So I locked my eyes on the kitchen window, and that's when I saw it again. It stopped in front of the window, growling and looking around, like it was hunting me. In a moment of sheer panic, I ran upstairs to my bedroom, locked everything and closed myself in the closet. The situation felt like a nightmare. I wasn't capable of rational thought and couldn't even think of calling 911. But then again, what was I going to say? No one would ever believe me. I cried myself to sleep inside that closet. The only time I had courage to come out was in the morning. Fortunately, the creature was already gone, but it left the back door with a few scratch marks. I researched online and it looks like I had an encounter with the Dogman. There are a few witnesses that had similar encounters with the creature looking like this one. One thing is for sure, it made me a believer.
I've been camping alone in the woods for years, always finding peace in the isolation, the quiet that only deep nature can provide. This time, I'd ventured farther as usual, deep into the Michigan wilderness. It was the kind of place where cell phone reception was non-existent, and the nearest human was probably miles away, just how I liked it. I set up my tent near a small clearing surrounded by tall pines, their branches swaying gently in the evening breeze. As the sun began to sink, the woods transformed. The soft light filtering through the trees grew dim, casting long shadows that stretched across the forest floor. By the time darkness had fully settled in, my campfire was the only source of light for what felt like miles. I sat there by the fire, eating a simple meal and enjoying the sounds of the forest. The chirping of crickets, the occasional hoot of an owl, it was all so familiar. But as the night deepened, those sounds started to fade. It wasn't sudden, but one by one, the noises stopped until there was nothing, just silence. That's when I felt it. The unmistakable sensation of being watched. I looked around, squinting in the darkness, but saw nothing. Just the trees, the shadows, and the faint glow of the dying fire. I tried to shrug it off, but the feeling lingered, gnawing at the back of my mind. Then I heard it. A rustling in the bushes, just beyond the reach of the fire's light. I grabbed my flashlight and aimed it toward the noise. The beam cut through the dark, but there was nothing there. I stood up, scanning the area, my heart pounding in my chest. A branch snapped, this time closer. I whipped the flashlight around, and that's when I saw it. Just for a split second, caught in the beam of light. A figure, large and hunched over, standing on two legs but covered in dark, matted fur. Its head, it was a wolf's head, massive and snarling, its yellow eyes reflecting the light. I froze, my mind racing to make sense of what I was seeing. It was impossible. It couldn't be real. But it was. The creature stared at me, sniffing the air, its lips curling back to reveal sharp, gleaming teeth. Instinct kicked in and I took a step back, trying not to make any sudden movements. The creature's ears twitched, its eyes locked on me, and it let out a growl, the sound vibrating through the still night air. My breath caught in my throat, and for a moment, I thought it was going to charge. But it didn't. Instead, it turned and disappeared into the trees, its massive form blending into the shadows, as if it had never been there. I stood there, my heart still racing, the flashlight shaking in my hand. I didn't know what to do. Run, hide, or pack up and leave. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't alone out here. The rest of the night passed in a blur of tension and fear. I sat by the fire, knife in hand, listening for any sign of the creature's return. But it never came. By the time the sun rose, I was already packing up, desperate to leave the woods behind. I don't know what I saw that night, but I'll never forget it, and I'll never camp alone again. The plan was simple, a quick weekend camping trip with my buddy Trevor. We'd set up camp, hike during the day, and share a few beers by the fire at night. We'd both grown up hearing the local legends about Dogman, but neither of us had ever put much stock in them. Just stories to scare kids. Or so I thought. It was our second night in the woods, and we were feeling adventurous. Trevor suggested we take a short hike under the full moon. "The trail looks completely different at night," he said, grabbing his flashlight. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We left the campfire smoldering and headed into the woods. At first, everything was fine. The moon was bright, casting a silvery glow over the trees, and the night air was cool and crisp. We walked along the familiar trail, laughing and joking, the sound of our boots crunching against the dirt, the only noise in the stillness. But after a while, the atmosphere shifted. The air grew heavier, the woods darker, even with the moon overhead. That's when we heard it. Something moving in the trees, following us. We stopped, and so did the sound. Trevor flashed his light into the woods, but we didn't see anything. "Probably just a deer," he muttered. But I could tell he didn't believe it any more than I did. We kept walking, but the sound picked up again. The distinct sound of heavy footsteps trailing us from a distance. My skin prickled, and I glanced at Trevor. His face was pale, his grip on the flashlight tightening. Suddenly, a low growl echoed from the darkness, deep and guttural. We froze, our breath hitching. I turned slowly, scanning the trees, and that's when I saw it. A massive shape standing just beyond the edge of the trail. It was on two legs, towering over the underbrush, its silhouette unmistakably canine. My stomach dropped as I realized what we were looking at. The stories were true. The creature stepped forward, its head tilting in our direction. In the moonlight, I saw its face, the face of a wolf. Its eyes glowing unnaturally, its teeth bared in a snarl. It was huge, easily over 7 feet tall, its fur matted and dark. "Run," Trevor whispered, but we didn't move. Neither of us could. The creature let out another growl, louder this time, and took another step toward us. This was all it took. We bolted, sprinting back toward camp as fast as we could. The sound of our feet pounding against the trail was drowned out by the thing crashing through the woods behind us. I didn't dare look back, too afraid of what I might see. We didn't stop running until we reached the safety of the campfire. We collapsed by the fire, gasping for breath, but the creature didn't follow us. It stayed out there, lurking in the darkness. We didn't sleep that night. We packed up and left at first light, not saying a word to each other. Whatever that thing was, it wasn't something either of us wanted to encounter again.
I'd like to thank the Darkest Tales animation studio for the opportunity to collab on these cryptid stories. Let's see what fresh hell we can unleash with today's 2 stories. I needed a break. Life had been getting too loud, too chaotic, and I needed to quiet it all down. So I did what I always do when the world feels too much. I packed up my gear and went camping. This time, I chose the pines of northern Arizona, deep in the wilderness. Alone. No people, no noise, just me and nature. I arrived late in the afternoon, the sun already beginning its slow descent, casting long shadows across the forest floor. The smell of pine needles and fresh earth was intoxicating, and I found a nice secluded spot to set up my tent. As I pitched my camp, I felt the weight of the world start to lift from my shoulders. By the time I got a fire going, night had fully set in. I sat there by the fire, sipping water, watching the flames dance. It was peaceful, the kind of quiet that's hard to find. The forest was alive with the usual sounds. Crickets chirping, the occasional hoot of an owl, and the wind whistling through the trees. But then, after a while, something changed. The forest went silent, completely silent. No crickets, no wind, nothing. It was eerie, like someone had flipped a switch and muted the world. My first thought was that maybe a predator was nearby. Maybe a mountain lion. I stood up, straining to hear something, anything. And then I did. Footsteps. At first, I thought it might just be a deer, but no. These steps were too heavy, too deliberate. They were the kind of footsteps you'd expect from something walking on two legs. My pulse quickened, and I grabbed my flashlight, shining it into the trees. Nothing. I kept looking, but everything was just shadows and more shadows. My nerves were starting to get the better of me when I heard it. James. My name, but not in a normal way. It sounded off, like someone had recorded my name and played it back at a slower speed, twisting the pitch. I whipped around, pointing my light in every direction, but there was nothing there. "Who's there?" I shouted, my voice shaky. No answer, just more silence. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I took a step toward the trees, gripping my flashlight so hard my knuckles went white. "James." The voice came again, closer this time. I was terrified now, every instinct telling me to run, but I forced myself to stay. My flashlight beam caught something, a figure standing between two trees, barely visible in the darkness. It was tall, unnaturally tall and hunched over. Its limbs were long and spindly, like it wasn't used to standing upright. I tried to make sense of what I was seeing, but nothing about it was right. "James." The voice came again, and this time it sounded exactly like me. I stumbled back, my mind racing. This thing, whatever it was trying to mimic me. I backed away toward the fire, my flashlight trembling in my hand. The creature stepped forward into the light, and I finally got a good look at it. Its skin was stretched tight over its bones, almost like it had been dead for a long time. Its face was gaunt, eyes sunken deep into its skull, and it had this grotesque smile that didn't belong on any living thing. "James," it rasped again, the voice now a mockery of my own. Panic surged through me, and I turned and ran. I could hear it following me, crashing through the trees, its steps fast and heavy. I didn't stop running, didn't even look back. The only thing on my mind was getting away from that thing, whatever it was. My lungs were burning by the time I reached a ranger station, the faint light from its windows like a beacon in the night. I stumbled inside, slamming the door behind me. My heart was still racing, my body trembling. I never saw the creature again, but I can still hear it sometimes, in my head. My name, repeated in that awful, twisted voice. Story number 2. It was supposed to be just another camping trip. Lucas and I had done this a dozen times before, packing up the truck, driving out to some remote spot, and spending a couple of nights under the stars. This time, we picked a dense patch of forest in northern Michigan, miles away from any town or road. Perfect for getting away from everything. The first night was uneventful, just how I liked it. We set up camp, got a fire going, and spent the evening grilling hot dogs and telling stupid stories. The sounds of the forest were a constant hum around us, blending into the background as the fire crackled and popped. By the time we turned in for the night, I was feeling pretty good. But the second night, something felt different. As we sat around the fire, I couldn't shake this weird feeling that we were being watched. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, the kind of paranoia that comes from being in the woods at night. But every time I glanced into the trees, I swore I saw something moving, just out of sight. "I heard something last night," I said, trying to sound casual. "Like footsteps, but not an animal, you know. Something heavier." Lucas laughed, taking a bite of his sandwich. "You've been watching too many horror movies, man." "It's probably just a deer or something." I forced a laugh, trying to shrug it off, but I wasn't convinced. The woods were too quiet, the air too still. Something was wrong, but I didn't want to seem paranoid, so I let it go. Later that night, after the fire had died down and Lucas had gone to sleep, I lay in my tent, staring up at the dark ceiling, listening. I heard it again. Those footsteps. Slow, deliberate, moving just outside the camp. I held my breath, hoping it was nothing, but the steps kept coming, closer and closer. "Lucas," I whispered. No answer. Suddenly, a low growl cut through the silence. Deep, guttural, and way too close. My heart was pounding as I unzipped my tent and crawled out, gripping my flashlight. The beam of light swept over the campsite, but I couldn't see anything. Lucas' tent was still zipped up tight, but I could see his shape moving inside. And then I saw it. A figure, standing at the edge of the clearing, just beyond the light of the fire. At first, I thought it was a person, but as it stepped forward, my stomach dropped. It wasn't human. It was massive, at least 7 feet tall, standing on 2 legs. Its body was shaped like a man, but its head was that of a wolf. A huge, snarling wolf. The thing stared right at me, its eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. It sniffed the air, baring its teeth in a snarl, and took another step toward me. I froze, every muscle in my body screaming at me to run, but I couldn't move. Then, out of nowhere, Lucas burst out of his tent, flashlight in hand. The beam hit the creature square in the face, and it let out this bone-chilling roar, turning its head away from the light. That was all the motivation I needed. "Run!" I shouted, and we bolted into the woods, not stopping to look back. Branches whipped against my face as we ran, our footsteps pounding against the ground. I could still hear the creature's growls behind us, but it wasn't following. Not yet. We didn't stop running until we could no longer hear anything but our own ragged breathing. We didn't sleep that night. We didn't even speak. As soon as the first light of dawn broke through the trees, we packed up and left. Neither of us said a word about it on the way home, but we both knew we wouldn't be coming back. Whatever that thing was, it wasn't something you wanted to meet twice.